What's up, internet friends, and welcome to the Isn't It Crazy podcast. So, today I want to talk about police brutality just because it happened again. And I wouldn't be surprised if it happened again and again until we find a solution to police brutality. This time it happened to Jacob Blake. He was shot 7 times in the back by Officer Rustin Shetsky, that fucking nerd. And, you know, like every other subject I bring up on this podcast, I think about it. I do a little bit of research just so I don't sound stupid. And what my research showed me was that we've been dealing with this problem for a very long time. The earliest one I could remember was Rodney King in 1992, but you have Eric Gardner, you have Mike Brown, George Floyd, and now Jacob Blake. And I'm sure there's countless thousands more in between Rodney King and Jacob Blake, and there's thousands to hundreds of thousands before Rodney King. One of the reasons we don't know a lot about that is because before the people that came before Rodney King is because police officers weren't mandated to report police brutality when it was committed. And we didn't have social media or media outlets like we do nowadays. I think when it comes to police brutality, it's reaching a boiling point. It's reaching a point where something's got to give. And it could be good or it could be bad. Hopefully, it's in the good way where we find solutions to the problem and everybody can agree on these solutions and say, this is how we move forward when it comes to police brutality. What my research showed me was that when it comes to police brutality, if you're Black in America, you're 3 times more likely to be killed by a cop than, say, a white person or an Asian person. That's why the names I mentioned were all Black. But police brutality does not mean that it only happens to Black people. It happens to white people, Asian people, Latino people. If you rank them, it goes Black, Latino, white, Asian, and other. I don't know why it happens more to Black people. Maybe they're seemed culturally more as a threat, or there's racist cops. I don't know which one it is. But either way, 1 in 1,000 Black guys in America will get killed by a cop. And that is insane odds. That is scary odds, to be honest. But how do we fix this problem? One of the solutions I came up with was making sure that cops face actual consequences for their actions. Because in the America that we live in today, only 2% of cops get convicted when it comes to police brutality cases, and only 3% of cops get charges ever filed against them. So you're talking about 97% of the police force getting away with police brutality. And if I know those numbers, those guys know those numbers. And what it tells them is that the justice system will always be on their side. And there's no real consequences to their actions. There's consequences for the general public. If I go and shoot somebody or steal something, I get prosecuted, I get convicted, and I get put in jail. So whenever maybe I get the urge to go steal something from Target, I'm hesitant because I don't want to end up in jail. I don't want to get butt fucked by anybody. But these cops know there's no consequences. So they act freely. And sometimes they do it on purpose. Sometimes they do it by mistake. Either way, they're not going to jail. So they're not worried about it. They're not hesitant at all. If you gave cops a concrete reason not to shoot somebody, they might not shoot them. They might be hesitant. They might resort to other tactics, like de-escalating the situation, assessing, is this person a threat or not? Using non-lethal weapons to subdue the subject, whether it's a taser, a rubber bullet, a baton, coordinating with their partners to make sure that everybody knows exactly what's happening. Is this person armed? Real consequences would force a cop to think about all that. Now, some people are saying, well, when it comes to situations like this, the cop has a couple minutes to decide everything. Is this person a threat? Is he armed? And that's where another solution would be that cops need more training in America. I feel like cops get trained at the beginning when they're in an academy, and when they graduate, they get a badge and a gun, and they're told to use their better judgment in these situations with minimal training throughout their career. Guns in America should be, especially for cops, a privilege, not a right. If you subjected cops to training every 2 weeks in order for them to keep their gun, most of them would do it. And this training would consist of getting put in like real life situations where instead of just shooting somebody, they learn how to de-escalate the situation, and they learn to assess the situation and and see if this person is a threat or not. Keep calm in situations like this. A lot of these guys, their defense is that they feared for their life, so that's why they shot this person, or they choked this person, and maybe they made a mistake. So training a cop should be more of a mandate, should be bi-weekly or once a month, just to remind them this is how you have to act around people so you don't make mistakes and kill somebody that's unarmed and wasn't a threat at you at all. I got that idea from listening to Joe Rogan and Jocko Wilkins. Jocko Wilkins is a former US Navy commander, and he said that in his squad, his platoon, they would train over and over so they knew how to act and stay calm in life-threatening situations like those, so they didn't make a mistake. And a lot of police departments say that, oh, well, we don't have the time or resources to train cops every month. Well, if you went to a community and told them, hey, we need to tax you guys $2 more on your paycheck or whatever goods you're selling, because we're going to use the money to train cops so they don't end up shooting your sons, daughters, and fathers, I don't think anybody would say no. I would say yes in a heartbeat. Just tax me $5 if you want, as long as I feel safe that the people that are put into and given this power over the community know exactly what to do in life threatening situations, and they don't make a mistake and shoot me in the head or in the back 7 times. I don't think anybody in this country would say no to being taxed a little bit more so cops are trained better. I think that's the solution to police reform. You don't abolish the cops. No, I don't want that. You know how scary the world would be if there's no cops? I'm sure there's a lot of people that want to kill me. And the only thing that's stopping them is the fact that they know they would get arrested and go into jail. So abolishing the cops isn't the right idea. Training the cops so they know how to de escalate a situation, when to use lethal and non lethal action, and how they should act in life threatening situations would go further than abolishing the cops ever will. That being said, I think cops should also be wearing body cams. And I know a lot of places do it, but I think it should be mandatory for every cop in the United States to wear one. The technology isn't perfect, but I'm sure if it was a mandatory thing, they could perfect it down to minimal errors, where these things are recording every time somebody gets pulled over, every time somebody's confronted by a cop, just so when it's all said and done, there's proof of what exactly happened. So if the cop is trained and they have a body cam, they're more hesitant and they know exactly how to act in these situations. And maybe this saves a life. This prevents unarmed black guy or an unarmed individual getting shot. It prevents businesses from getting lit on fire every time a city decides they have to riot and make their voice heard that of the injustice that just happened. Small efforts. I don't think it takes a lot to train a cop once a month. And I don't think it takes a lot for a community to pool their money and get cops body cams. That being said, cops and communities have to work together to figure out how they should act around each other. If a cop is putting in the time to get trained and learn how to conduct himself in these situations, so should people. We're not all innocent either. I've seen plenty of videos on social media where a person refuses to give a cop their identification, their ID. They argue with the cop like, I'm right, you're wrong, fuck you, I'm not going to listen to you. That doesn't help the situation at all. That doesn't de-escalate the situation. If anything, it makes it worse. So people should know how to act around cops too. I don't know exactly what you should do to make a cop feel safe, but what I do, and for example, I once got pulled over, right? And I immediately grabbed my identification, my license, my insurance, my car registration from the window visor or whatever to block the sun. I don't know what it's called. But immediately grabbed that and then I put my hands on the steering wheel. Here's my identification, here's my thing. Cop comes up to the window, asks me, "Do I know why I got pulled over?" I say no. He says it's because I'm speeding. Now, I know I wasn't speeding. I know I was going 35 on a 35, but I'm not going to sit there and argue with him. So I give him my driver's license and all my identification, and he comes back and tells me he's going to give me a ticket for speeding. And he also tells me that I drive a cop car, or no, a drug dealer car. And then I knew he was going to ask me if he could search the car. Now, I'm not a drug dealer. I'd have a lot more money if I did, but I suck at dealing drugs. I tried it once in high school and I failed miserably. So I told myself, maybe the drug game isn't for you. And I'm no fucking Scarface. So I told him, I'm like, you could search the car. They searched the car, they couldn't find anything. And then I got arrested because I didn't have my license. Like my license was invalid or whatever. But I didn't lose anything from letting them search the car. I didn't lose anything from giving them my identification. What I gained was that the cop probably felt safe around me because I was showing him that I was not armed, that I was not a threat to him. I was being compliant with their orders. Search my car. I didn't lose anything. I still got my dignity. I got out of jail. I went to court and I told them I wasn't speeding. I'll pay the ticket for not having my license. Show me the radar where it says I was speeding. He couldn't produce it, so they dropped the ticket. The only ticket I had to pay was not having a valid license. I didn't lose anything. If anything, I gained my safety because they knew, hey, this guy's complying. This guy's showing us he's not armed. He's showing us he's not a threat. You don't lose anything. I don't know why people fight back against cops so much. That's why I think that communities and people in the United States should learn how to act around cops. Because I could have made that situation way worse. I could have argued with him about the speeding. I could have told him, fuck off, you don't have a warrant, you can't search my car. And then what happens is they're like, oh, you're going to be an asshole to me, I'm going to be an asshole to you. And then both parties are in the defensive. And then the situation gets escalated and then something bad could happen. When it comes to Jacob Blake shooting, I don't quite agree that this cop was in the wrong. Just because the guns were out, you see Jacob Blake walking towards his car, opens the door, reaches down to his floorboard of the car. And when you put yourself in that situation, you've escalated the situation so much that this cop is fearing for his life. He doesn't know what you're going to get in that floorboard. Maybe it's a fucking receipt you dropped. Maybe it's your fucking license. Maybe it's a gun. Maybe it's fucking gum. I don't know what it is, and neither does that cop. And when you get a cop that's undertrained and knows there's no consequences to what's going to happen, and he's fearing for his life, he makes mistakes and he shoots you in the back 7 times. I don't think he should have shot him 7 times, but even one shot could have taken your life. Jacob Blake did not know how to comply when it comes to a cop. And people are like, you shouldn't be so submissive to the cops. It's like, it's not being submissive. You're just showing them that you're not a threat and you don't lose anything from it. When if you escalate the situation, you might end up losing your life. That's the problem we have in today's America. Both sides have to become better when it comes to interacting with one another. Cops have to be trained more. People have to be trained more. Show them that you're not a threat so they don't think you're a threat and make mistakes. Don't put it all on the cop. do your part too. You know, that's why we have court systems, because if a cop does something wrong, you could take it to the court and say, this is where I think my rights were violated. And if you provide a cop with a body cam, there's evidence of where you think your rights got violated, and you can point them out and probably win the case. You beat the cop by arguing with him outside of your car, outside of your house, or anywhere a cop might confront you isn't going to do you any good. So, those are the solutions I think would help police brutality become a thing of the past. You know, the cops that are doing the police brutality should have real consequences against them. Cops should be trained more and have to be mandated to wear body cams. And if that means we get taxed a little bit more because the cops need the more money to train and hire more people, so be it. Because in the long run, you're losing $3 a paycheck or whatever it is that they tax you. I don't think they're going to tax you $50. You know, they'd be making billions of dollars. It's going to be a small tax that could help these communities pay for training and have better trained cops so they don't make mistakes where somebody loses their life. That being said, we got to put in our own effort too. We have to take, we have to get away from this idea that if you submit to a cop or any authority figure, you're losing something, because you're not. And if a cop does something wrong, you should know that there's a place called a court where you can argue where you think your rights were violated. It becomes a give and take kind of thing. You know, they give you a little bit, you give them a little bit, they take away a little bit, and then we meet somewhere in the middle where both parties feel safe when they confront one another and mistakes are kept to a minimum. I don't think this is a utopian solution where everything just is perfect. I'm sure there's racist cops. I'm sure there's bad cops. I'm sure there's people that hate cops and aren't going to follow the suggestions the government give them when they're like, hey, this is how you can make a cop feel safe around you. There's people that don't give a fuck. They're wild. They just, they're here for a good time, not a long time. You know, they're going to test the limits on what a cop will do. And this video wasn't a Black Lives Matter video or a Blue Lives Matter video. I just wanted to focus on some type of solution so we don't have to see yet another black guy get shot in the news, or any race for that matter. But other than that, that's all I really thought about this weekend, other than the NBA playoffs. And we're moving on to round two. I gave you guys my round one predictions, and most of them were right. I'm still waiting on the two series, OKC and the Rockets. They're 3-3. Game sevens tomorrow, I think, and Denver Nuggets versus the Jazz, another 3-3. I think I can't move on to round two until I make sure I tell you guys exactly what I think in these two series. So I think the Rockets are going to win against OKC. You know, OKC gave them a good fight, but the Rockets are just going to come out and shoot the three like it's their job and try to outscore them that way in game seven. And if they can efficiently do that, they will face the Lakers in the second round. And when it comes to the Nuggets and the Jazz, you know, when you have seeds that are so close to one another, you're going to get these battles. You're going to get these 7 series games, because these teams, it's not that one's better than the other, like a 1 seed and an 8 seed. These teams are more likely than not even with one another. And this is what you get. So if Jamal Murray could have another 40-point game for game 7, I see the Denver Nuggets moving on and beating the Jazz and having to play against the Clippers. That being said, I think it's going to be Lakers and Houston and Nuggets and the Clippers. And all of my predictions for round 1 would be right. Now, moving on to round 2, I think the West is where it's at. You know, these are some killer teams going up against another killer team, and the East isn't far behind. The East has a lot of interesting storylines that you can follow. I think the better players are in the West. And when it comes to a 7 series against the Lakers and Rockets, I think Lakers take it 4-2 in 6 games. The Lakers aren't very efficient in shooting the 3, and AD tends to fall away in the fourth quarter. If they can fix that, they'll definitely win the 4 games and 6 games. But I think there's going to be a couple games where the Rockets just outshoot the Lakers and are more efficient at the three. The Rockets are going to take two games, probably 2 and 4, and then the Lakers are just with LeBron, AD, and their ability to have chemistry and just power through. It's kind of like the symptom of having the best player in the world on your team. He's going to will his way through the Rockets and make it to the Western Conference final, which is insane because last year they didn't even make the playoffs. So I see the Lakers winning 42 against the Houston Rockets. And that's my first pick for the Western Conference round 2. In the other side, you got the Clippers versus the Nuggets. Given if the Nuggets win, I think they're going to win. And hopefully they do, or else these picks are ridiculous, anyways. But, the Clippers were so underwhelming in the first round. I'm losing hope that they're gonna win this championship. They were the favorites when they first started in the bubble. And a lot of people said, oh, they're just getting the rust out of the way in the 8 games before the playoffs started. But they just can't figure it out. There's no chemistry in this team. Patrick Beverly's out with a calf injury. And right now they're just kind of hoping that Kawhi can muscle them through into the Western Conference final. And, Paul George has his games. Sometimes he's good, sometimes he's bad. A lot of it has been because of his mental state in the bubble. He misses his family. He has to talk to his coach, and his coach has to remind him why he's here. If he could figure out his mental problems and be more efficient and consistent in the second round, I see the Clippers beating, whether it's Nuggets or the Jazz. These teams are battling. And when you go through a battle like a 7 series with a team that's almost as good as you are, whatever team comes out of those two is at a huge disadvantage when it comes against the Clippers. Now, if Jamal Murray and the Nuggets can come out of the first round and he could be efficient as he was in the first round against the Jazz, he could do that against the Clippers. They're going to put up a fight. Not a very good one. I see it going 4-2 and Clippers winning the 4 out of the 2. I think if the Nuggets are going to win any games, it's going to be either the first one and the third one, just because the Clippers will adjust and then beat them out that way. So for the Western Conference, my second round picks are going to be the Lakers and the Clippers in the Western Conference Finals, which I'm sure if that happens, the whole NBA world is going to go fucking nuts. So hopefully that happens because I won't miss a fucking game. I'll tell you that much. In the Eastern Conference Final, I told you guys there was a lot of stories that you could follow. One of them being the Heat versus the Bucks. Logic tells you that the Bucks are gonna win just because they're already on their way. They already played their first game, and the Heat won the first game, but so did Orlando. Orlando beat them in the first game, and I think it takes Milwaukee a bit to adjust and figure out who their opponent is. So they kind of use that first game to get a feel for the team and then come back with a better plan on how to beat you. But I could see the Heat pulling an upset against the Bucks, and I hope so because Jimmy Butler has been my guy since he was 21 in the Bulls here in Chicago. I always root for him, whether he was in the Sixers or the Heat. I love his style of play. He's a very passionate player, a very just pedal to the metal kind of guy. So I'm gonna go with the Heat. I'm gonna put some money on there. The odds look pretty good, and I think they could pull the upset, but it's not gonna be easy. I think they go all 7 games, and I just think the Heat are kind of riding this wave where they're better coached, more willing teammates. The chemistry is better, and the Jimmy Butler is just going to be the deciding factor when it comes to this series. So I'm going to pick the Miami Heat to win against the Milwaukee Bucks in an upset. On the other hand, you got the Boston Celtics versus the last year's champion, the Toronto Raptors. Now the Toronto Raptors don't have Kawhi Leonard, but they do have Laurie and Siakam, I think. I'm not sure. I might be getting that wrong. There's one more guy I'm missing, but when your number one player is Laurie, and on the other side, the Boston have Brown and Tatum, I don't see them winning any games. I think Boston sweeps the Raptors. I could give them maybe one game, but it's going to be a very easy series for the Boston Celtics. I think their coach is very innovative. He's young. He's bringing new things to the game that nobody had seen before. He has two clear superstars and a better team chemistry than the Raptors do. So I'm gonna pick the Boston Celtics to win against the Raptors 4-1. I don't even think they're gonna win one, but I'm just gonna, anything could happen. People can get hurt, but I think the Boston Celtics have better players, better coach, and more momentum on their side. Now, if they win that second and third one, it's over. I wouldn't even think the Raptors are gonna win one, but you never know. So for the Eastern round two picks, I'm picking the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics to meet in the Eastern Conference final. And that's gonna be a pretty good see if it all works out and my picks are right. You're gonna get a lot of interesting conference finals in the East and in the West. And that's exactly, I'm sure the NBA is hoping for that because they need to bring up their views. They are in a bubble. And if the bubble turns out to be this drama filled and interesting, it's a home run for the NBA. So I'm sure they're rooting for my picks to go through too. And like I always say, if you guys disagree or think I'm picking wrong, please let me know in the comments. Other than that, I didn't do a lot this weekend. Uh, Last podcast, I was going to give you guys a suggestion in a show and a movie. And I think this is perfect time because this weekend I did go out with my girlfriend. You know, the weekend's usually when I see her. So Friday night, we ended up going to get bubble tea. And there was this girl in line and she had like a seizure and she just fell to the ground. And my girlfriend offered her friend to call it 911. And her friend was freaking out. She said, yes, go ahead, call him. And the girl gets up and she's like, I'm fine, don't call him. So my girlfriend hangs up. As she's hanging up, this girl has another seizure. She just seizes up. She falls to the ground. Her friend catches her again. And this girl's shaking for like a good 10 seconds on the ground. And everybody's freaking out. Police usually call back. If you call them and hang up, they'll call you back. So they were calling my girlfriend back. She answered. She's like, yes, we need somebody here to help this girl out. And this girl gets back up and she says, no, I don't need any help. And I'm just standing there going like, this chick is crazy. Like, you just had two seizures in the span of 5 minutes and you don't need any help. 911 said, we're just going to send somebody just to check. And these guys show up and they're like, oh, who had the seizures? And then she was denying it. She's like, no, I didn't have it. I didn't do it. Did nothing happen. I just fell. And I was like, wow, like, we're, you need help. There's something clearly wrong with you. And the paramedics are asking her questions, but if you deny help, they're not going to help you. They're just going to be like, all right, this bitch is crazy. Like, you're wasting our time. But the only reason I tell you guys that story is because it reminded me of the movie I saw about 2 weeks ago, and it's called Chemical Hearts. It's Lily Reinhart from Riverdale, and I don't know Homeboy's name. I'll put a picture up so you guys can see him. Maybe you guys know who he is, but it's a free movie on Amazon. If you got Amazon Prime, Amazon Video, you could watch it there. Just pull it up, search up Chemical Hearts, and it follows this crazy girl who clearly doesn't want help from society. And it just reminded me so much about the girl at Liquid who just fell and was denying help. You don't know what people are going through, and sometimes they don't want to tell people what they're going through, so they deny help. That's kind of the theme of this movie when it comes to chemical hearts. This girl, she lost her boyfriend in a car accident, and this boy meets her, and he just wants to fix her, and she doesn't want to let him know what's wrong with her, and she kind of pushes him away, but he's like infatuated with her. He's pretty much falling in love with her, and he's trying to fix her, and she won't let him. And for some reason, this girl on the floor reminded me of this girl, because the girl, Lily Reinhart, in the Chemical Hearts, she's kind of crippled. She's after the accident, her leg was never the same, and she's kind of like doesn't move the same, and you could tell she's broken. And this kid is trying to fix her, but she won't let him. And there's a twist. I don't want to give it away. I don't want to spoil the movie for anybody. And this twist is insane. Believe me, I was watching it and I was like, what the fuck? Like, you think this is just another like romantic movie, boy meets girl kind of thing. Like at the end, they end up together. It's weirder. It's weirder than that. And I love movies that have twists in them. You know, the unexpected always leaves an impression on you. And not only does it have that, it has great dialogue. I love a movie that has great dialogue. I think that's one of number one thing I look for, other than the way the movie looks. If a movie looks like they shot it off a Canon video camera, then a pass. That's a pass for me. It has to look like a well produced movie. Then look at the dialogue. What are they saying? What they're saying? Does it make you think? Do they use a lot of metaphors, a lot of foreshadowing? All these things are important when it comes to movies, especially to me, just because it keeps my attention. And also, I learned how to make this podcast better, because dialogue is everything when it comes to a podcast. What I'm saying, is it keeping your attention right now? Who knows? But great dialogue, great acting, twist in the story. What more can you ask for? If you guys have nothing to watch, you're scrolling through Amazon or Netflix, go check out Chemical Hearts on Amazon Prime. Pretty good movie. I think on the scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it an 8. Just because it pissed me off that she was handicapped. Like, you could have done without that. You could have just had this like traumatized girl, and she didn't want any help. But for some reason, it kind of distracted me away from who she was when she had to like hobble everywhere. That's all I could think about. Like, damn, does it hurt when she walks? So it kind of, I'll take 2 points away from that. So on the isn't it crazy scale, it's 8 out of 10 when it comes to movies, which is pretty good. And I'll always be honest. If it's a 2 out of 10, I would tell you guys. When it comes to the show, I was going to recommend. It's called Hoops, and it's an animation show, just like Big Mouth or Family Guy or South Park, and it follows a basketball coach in Kentucky. Now, I want you guys to look at it. It's on Netflix, and look at the cover. And the crazy thing about it is that I did not expect this show to be the way it was at all. It's like unfiltered. He says what's on his mind. It's one of the funniest TV shows I've ever seen, cartoon TV shows I've ever seen. On the Isn't It Crazy scale, I would say it's 10 out of 10, just because it made me laugh every single episode. I literally watched the series in one day. That's how good it was. I could not stop laughing. I probably would watch it again just as a pick me up to laugh a little bit more. The jokes they say, the situations he's put in, it's all just fucking hilarious. And I don't know. It was very interesting, and I suggest you guys go watch that if you got nothing else to watch. If you like anime shows like Big Mouth and Family Guy, South Park, American Dad, all that, it's right up your alley. It's hilarious. I laughed. I'm trying not to laugh just thinking about it, but it's pretty funny. I highly recommend it. But that's all I have to say about that. Um, my voice kind of hurts from talking so much, so I think I'm gonna end it on that. But hopefully, we could find a solution when it comes to police brutality. And while we wait for a solution to happen, you know, a reminder: vote. Make sure you put forward-thinking people in office, so solutions like mine can be put into action. I'm sure they're way smarter than I am, so they could think of 10 times better solutions than I have. But as long as they're forward thinking and they help the public move and solve problems like this, I'm all for it. Technically, I can't vote on federal elections because I'm a green card resident. So you guys have to vote and make sure that my voice and other people in the community whose voices aren't being heard are heard because of your vote. So go register and remember elections come November 3rd. So you have plenty of time to register and make sure that you find out where your polling place is so we can try to fix this country and try to fix the situations that we're in. But thank you guys for all the support you guys have been giving me. If you if this is your first time, just remember to please like and subscribe. Thank you.